Hello, friends, and welcome back to Sales and Business Growth for Busy Women. I am your host, Lindsay Fletcher, and this podcast is the place for small business owners to learn how to make more sales, have more time, and grow your business. Two things before we get started. Well, actually three. So number one is we have far and away exceeded 4,000 downloads from this podcast. So thank you so much for joining me and being along here for this journey. Number two, if you have not hit the follow button wherever you are listening, please do that. And then number three, if you are a woman in small business and you do not have a community or you are looking for a community where you can learn, get feedback, ask questions, and just be a part of a really awesome group of women, join our online community. I will link it in the show notes at the top so you can see it right away, but it is a women in business community and support for small business. So those are the three things. Yay for the downloads, and hit the follow button. And if you've not joined my online business, women in business group, please do that. Okay. Today we are going to have a conversation around imposter syndrome. Forgive me for assuming here, but I'm assuming that you get it too. I've had it. I have it often, and I have it more than I would probably like to admit. I get it about the women in business online community that I'm building sometimes, like who would want to be in an online community with me? And I actually used to get it about this podcast. I don't so much anymore, but I still get those thoughts every now and again. It's, the who will listen to me, who would hire me, all the negative thoughts about how I'm unqualified or I don't have the years and years of experience, which I do, and I am qualified to teach sales. So I wanted to share today with you kind of how I handle this when imposter syndrome creeps in, because if you're in small business, if it hasn't happened already, it probably will at some point. It will creep in and all the negative thoughts will start racing through your brain. And I want to give you a tool or a couple of tools, a couple of steps to work through this so that you can get back to serving your community and making an impact and making a living, making an impact. Okay, so let's have a quick chat about how I handle this when it creeps in. Step number one is I ask myself, what's the worst thing that could actually happen? And when it really boils down to it, is the answer is usually somewhere around nothing. Nothing will happen. No one's going to take my birthday away. They're not going to take my kids away. My husband's not going to leave me if this one deal doesn't go through or my business doesn't succeed or whatever, right? Like what I find about myself when imposter syndrome is setting in or that I'm anxious about something in my business, typically it's just a lot of made up scenarios in my head that are actually not the truth and they have not come to fruition. So I just remind myself that, hey, this really isn't reality. Nothing's really going to happen if this made up scenario in my head happens, right? Okay, step two. I remember that God has placed some things on my heart, and if He called me to it, He will walk me through it. And if I was qualified to do all the things I'm called to do, I wouldn't need Him. And I don't ever want to be in the place where I don't need Jesus. That's not a place I ever want to be in. So I just keep reminding myself the big dreams and the big things that God has placed in my heart. He is going to be there with me while I do these things and while I learn and figure this all out. Step three is actually where the magic happens. So step three is I ask myself what could go right. And then my mind starts jumping to making differences in the lives of women, many that are in my online community, right? And then I start thinking about the impact that I know I can have on others, the impact that I can have on their businesses and their time. And I start focusing on the impact, and focusing on the impact keeps me motivated to push through the imposter syndrome, because Satan wants me stuck in my own head. He wants me to stand still and not move forward and not gain on the plans that God has placed in my heart. So when I am able to push through the imposter syndrome and really focus on the impact, that's when I take action and I keep the ship moving forward. So I want you to bookmark this particular episode, because the next time that imposter syndrome starts to creep in, or those thoughts of feeling like you're just so unqualified for the big, audacious dreams and goals that you have, I want you to flip this on. I want you to remember the 3-step process. Number 1, we're going to ask ourselves what actually could happen. And we're going to remind ourselves that the stuff that's going on in our head isn't actually reality. And most of the time, the made up scenarios in our head never come to fruition. So just remember that. Step 2, we're going to remember that the big, audacious, God-sized goals have been placed there for a reason. And if he put it there, he will walk through this whole big, audacious dream with us. Then in step 3, we're going to focus on what could go right. And when we start focusing on what could go right, we start focusing on the impact that we can have on others, on their businesses, on their families, on their kids, on their parents, on whoever it is in their world. And when we start making an impact, that's when we can push through the imposter syndrome. So I hope this 3-step plan was very helpful to you. Once I figured this out for myself, it really has helped me shift my mindset and really take control of my thoughts and the way that I am thinking about myself in the impact that I am trying to make. My friend Misty said recently, think on purpose, and I just absolutely love that little statement. Think on purpose. We have to think on purpose, or our minds will go into places that we shouldn't be in, that we don't want to waste time on, and let's focus on the impact that we're making in others' lives. I'm praying for you. I'm praying for your business. Thank you so much for listening to this very short episode, and I will talk to you next time.